We want to talk with you about the books that feed your imagination and the vices that spark your soul.
We drink, we curse, we read things. Come sit by us. Expect no judgment, just good times.
Welcome to Paper and Vices. Books reviewed, vices indulged.
Mature content warning. I am Lee Vices.
And I am Victoria Papers, which is totally 8,000% my legal given name on my birth certificate.
Yep. We'll
Yep.
go with that.
Go with that. Hi, how are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Happy to be sitting here and have the rest of my day over with. Like in this moment, pretty damn good.
Right? Like this is like, nobody listening to this is going to know that it's like almost 10 at night and it's the last part of the day. And I'm very excited. You know what? I could be better because, and this might be a little bit too much background information for the listeners. It's a secret. Don't tell anyone. But it's actually 420, and I am not able to partake of 420 the way I would like to. One, because it's a random Tuesday, and two, because it's probably not good for nursing. So in honor of 420, I went out and I bought a bottle of Snoop Dogg red blend wine. I feel like that's kind of close.
I feel like he would approve. Martha Stewart, one of his closest friends, would definitely approve. So it's all good. It's all good. I'm too white to even attempt to say a shizzle thing, so I'm not going to embarrass myself that badly on the internet.
Maybe in a few glasses.
Maybe. Well, I'm not drinking wine tonight. I'm drinking coffee.
Ooh.
And rum, but coffee.
Like, do you have rum inside your coffee, or are they two separate drinks?
They are separate. This is a very nice pour over of my most recent bag from Caffeine and Legends. Use code Paper and Vices for 10% off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to just kind of let it chill on its own because I was like, it would be really good. A cup of that coffee. I think it's the one that I think we both got a bag of it. It's like a red and white bag with a tree and some gold on it that I can't remember the name of to save my life. Really damn good coffee. So I did a nice pour over of that. And then I was like, I don't want to record sober though. So I got out the last of my Kraken and here we are.
I feel like those are two very, very special beverages that are worth a night of recording.
Mm-hmm. Two great tastes that taste great together. You can't see this. We're cheersing on screen, though.
We totally are.
Mm-hmm. Just clink your glass to your listening device. It's fine.
So what are you reading right now?
Right now, I am reading Aderon, a sci-fi alien romance, Corsair Brothers Book 1 by Ruby Dixon. I've talked about Ruby Dixon before. Her Corsair Ice Planet Barbarians universe is really cool because it's all interwoven and there's always a larger plot going on and the women are all unique even though she's written like 8,523 of these books. And so it's a good time. It's just like, you're going to get some good fucking and you're going to get a story where the female is learning something about herself or kicking ass and saving the day or both. And you're going to get an overprotective, really attractive male who happens to be blue.
And even his dick is blue.
Yes. And in the Ice Planet Barbarian ones, they vibrate, though not necessarily in all of the books. It's a thing. It's a thing. One day we will buy you 2 bottles of wine and just have you read the first Ice Planet Barbarians book. But no, they're good. They're well written. They're well fleshed out, and they're not overly simplistic, but they're straight up romance books with an underlying plot. Like this is what you read them for. But she's done some short ones that, it's not all about sex. It's about those sweet little moments that make you like fall in love with somebody and I really like them. Do they really like me? Do I really like him? Is he a good guy? And so like some romance, and no shade on this, is just like smashing privates together. And some of it is about the full scope of the sweet, fluffy moments of romance. And Ruby Dixon writes those sweet, fluffy moments really, really well. And also,
Hmm.
they're smashing privates together at some point. So it's good. And we've talked about this before. I'm just repeating myself. It's a great palate cleanser if you've read something that's a little bit more heavy, or you want something light to read before bed and you're just not in the mood for another like Hunger Games, because that shit
Oh
gets real
Jesus.
heavy sometimes. Like there are heavier
Yeah.
themes in some of her books, but like not like that. So
No.
yeah, good stuff. I look forward to the rest in this series.
And you said the.
They're basically space pirates.
Oh, okay. Nice. Space
Corsairs
pirate.
are space pirates, and Ice Planet barbarians are literally exactly what they sound like. Is men wearing fur with vibrating dicks on a planet covered in ice. It's all good.
So, if you were getting into Ruby Dixon, because I know like she's very like high up there on my TBR list, is that where someone should start? Like with the vibrating penis or with the pirates?
So I would say what she is best known for is Ice Planet Barbarians. And even though they were the first stuff of hers that I read, they're not my favorite. There's a
Hmm.
whole bunch of, I don't know if they all fall under Corsairs, but there's a whole bunch of her books now about being out in space. And so it's more sci-fi, aliens, sort of, like if it was Firefly, but they were aliens,
Oh.
kind of vibe almost. And so I personally prefer those. Let me see. Yeah, the Corsairs are all the other Corsairs. Okay. So I know she did one series earlier about a separate ship of pirate brothers, and then this new one is a new ship of pirate brothers. And so the basis for all of it, the background of the whole universe is women were captured from Earth as slaves, which sucks. Some of
Okay.
them end up basically just being like companions to older aliens. Some of them are treated like exotic pets in a zoo. A lot of them are used for sex work. She's one of the things I appreciate is that she's very careful about writing about women reclaiming their sexuality after sexual abuse or PTSD. Like, she doesn't
Oh.
make light of it, she doesn't gloss over it. They're conscious of it. The partners are conscious of it. It's definitely one of those things where it's like, yes, bad things happen, but you still own your body and you still deserve pleasure, which is nice. It's good to
Yeah.
have these sort of conversations played out in the fiction we consume. Some of them are a little bit heavier and a little bit darker. But a lot of them are just like, badass women who survived space and the slave markets, fucking hot blue dudes. And they're all the characters are very individual, which is really interesting when she's written so many books in this universe. I mean,
Yeah.
um, there's I think 6 Corsair books now. Ice Home is like the ones I haven't read, but it's basically the further adventures of the planet covered in ice, and there's 8, 12, 13 of those.
Oh,
And then
geez.
Ice, like she's prolific. So I would say start with, if you just want the what the fuck blue alien dick factor, start with Ice Planet Barbarians. But if you want like a really cool like sci-fi story, start with the Corsairs. And if you just want a short story to see if you like her style, I don't know if I'm going to say this right. RISDA verse. Risdaverse?
Mm.
Risdaverse is how I say it in my
Ristaverse?
head.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're novellas in the blue alien world. And so they're much shorter stories. And so one of them is like a human who's been sold and works at like a strip club dancing naked in a space station every day. And every day she watches this old gruff looking alien dude who's basically half machine because he lost so many pieces in the war. And he runs a shop to fix other people's bionic parts basically. and they end up together and come to find out, obviously, she's been a not by choice sex worker for many years. She was taken from Earth. But when you get into that story, it's actually her that helps him heal because he's a virgin, because he was conscripted into this war that like
Hmm.
completely fucked him up, and he never thought anybody would want him, much less this pretty little human. And she's like, I will take the weird one, thank you, as human women so often do. Like the weird one with the emotional communication problems, that one's the one I want, thank
Yeah.
you. What are you reading? Hi.
Uh, I am finally reading Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. We posted a lot about it when it first came out. I got the special edition from LitJoy, and which there's a review of the LitJoy crate in general coming up pretty soon on our blog. Yeah, so I'm finally reading the actual Chain of Iron book. And so far it's really good. I'm about a quarter of the way through. Spoiler alert, I won't mention any of the character names, but two of the characters end up getting, maybe it's not too much of a spoiler if you've read the first one. But two of the characters end up getting married, and it's kind of supposed to be like a ruse, but they really kind of love each other. And then like there's magic involved with like a bracelet, and
Nice.
I don't know, it's very sweet to see like their friendship and just like how the start of their marriage plays out. I'm just like, I don't know, which is kind of like a nice surprise because, usually with like the Shadowhunter world, it's very like, very quick to action. And there is some action pretty quickly, but I don't know, it's a little bit more romance at first than immediate action, which is kind of a nice,
That's nice.
it is nice.
Because if I remember correctly, I haven't read as many of her books as you have. Romance is
Mm.
kind of like the back end afterthought. We'll kiss in the middle of the gore after everyone's dead situation. Like we get half a kiss that's interrupted at the beginning of the book. Shit happens. And then when everything's dead, we'll have the full
Yes.
kiss.
Pretty much. And some in the middle. But yeah, it's very, and that's one of the reasons I really like her stories are, is there's a lot of action. But this one started, like, I don't know, it's just a cool change of pace from what I'm used to with a lot of her books. So yeah, so I'm excited to continue to read that.
What are your vices this week? We ask the same two questions every episode, and I'm just like, what's next? I think the run has kicked in.
It's good times. That's a good spot. So my vices this week is actually Snickers, but not just any old Snickers, like the fun size Snickers, like stuck in the deep freezer. They have to be from the freezer.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a whole new level of amazing. And I don't know how they ended up. I do know. I remember I put them in the deep freezer. I wouldn't eat them all in one fucking sitting because I was about to, and then I was like, I should hide these, and the deep freezer was my choice. And then I discovered, oh, if you let them thaw just a little bit, enough to where you can actually bite off a piece. It's amazing. Simple,
I
but
feel
amazing.
like you made the best attempt to make the most adult choice possible, and therefore the universe should not fault you for eating all of the Snickers in one sitting because you fucking tried. Like, mm.
I did make them last for about 2 weeks, to be fair, but they're
we
gone.
won't we won't talk about how candy goes in my house. Oreo did these little like tiny foil wrapped eggs for Easter. I have 3 of those left. Not through any concerted power of will, but more like the realization that there will come a day when I just need to fucking hide under my desk from my family and eat the rest of my goddamn Easter candy.
It's good to have a hidden stash.
Their emergency chocolate is not a joke.
No, it's not.
It's a thing.
Very true. What are your vices this week?
Meal kits,
Hmm.
which is like one of the bougiest things I can think of because it's not even like when we were first married, and I've talked about this before. So I want people to, and I keep saying that because I want people to know that I recognize my immense privilege in this moment. we didn't necessarily always have the money for groceries. And when we did, it was, you're probably eating what's on sale, or you get to pick 1 or 2 meals and the rest is what's on sale. And that's fine. We got through those years. They sucked. We can afford fresh, organic, local strawberries now. I'm thankful. So having someone deliver a box of pre-packaged food and recipe cards to your house, like we were having this conversation today. I was like, I need to cook because we've eaten out too much. The thought of figuring out what the fuck to make for dinner makes me want to cry. And then I got a notice on my phone and it was like, hey bitch, past self set you up for success. There's a box of food on your porch. And it was wonderful. And dinner was really good. And I had to chop stuff and saute stuff, but I didn't have to think. And that's what you're paying for. You're not paying for the ingredients or the uniqueness or the packaging. You're paying to not have to think and also not have the guilt of eating out. That is what you are paying for. And so we got like some really cool introductory offer, and it ended up being ridiculously cheap for this box of 5 meals for our family. And we're a family of 3. So we have leftovers for either me and the kid for lunch tomorrow or for my husband for lunch tomorrow. And I showed you the picture. Like, I opened the top of this box and it was like, that is a huge fucking box of vegetables. Okay. And I'm excited because I didn't have to think about all the places those vegetables are going to go. I just have to follow the card. It's amazing. I love it. Probably not going to do it all the time, but I may look at our budget and see if I can have like 1 or 2 boxes a month if it's not super crazy, because just we don't have room where we live now. And then the garage doesn't really have the electrical to have a chest freezer. So, and our fridge is a side by side. So our freezer is like, haha, you can fit 2 ice creams and you're done. 2 ice creams and all those bananas you tell yourself you're eventually going to make into banana bread. Because your kid was like, I need bananas, and then ate 2 of them.
Yep.
So doing any sort of like serious meal prep is kind of a pain in the butt. But if they just mail me the box, I don't have to think. And that's very lovely. No think, no guilt, tasty dinner. Here for it.
How long did it take you? Like prep, like even with cutting the veggies?
It always takes longer. I am not a baby cook. I am a decent cook. They're 25-minute recipes. Tonight's took me 40 minutes.
Okay.
They always take longer. And I'm not, it's not like I never cook. I cook all the time, which is why I go through these phases where I'm like, I'm not cooking. I'm probably never cooking again. I hope y'all like ramen and Taco Bell. But like, I know all the basics. I can do my mise en place. I have a bag of Holy Trinity and mirepoix frozen in the freezer, ready to go in the Instapot at all times. Like, I can do all the things. It just takes me longer than their, 2 minutes to chop all these vegetables. No, bitch, I don't do this for a living, and I want to keep my fingernails. It takes me longer.
Yep.
But that's why you have wine and Michael Bublé while you cook. Don't listen to Michael Bublé at any other point in my life anymore, but like while you're cooking dinner, especially if you have alcohol, Michael Bublé, preferably like his second album, Good Times.
I have not listened to that man in so long. I'm going to do that this week.
Yep. Yes.
He's got such a sexy voice.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
He's not bad on the eyes either.
No. The only thing I don't like about Michael Bublé is that the last time I had a chance to see him in concert, floor tickets were $532, so I didn't get to see Michael Bublé in concert.
Excuse me?
I know. And I'm not even saying he's not worth it. I'm just like, that's
a lot of money.
That's so much money. Like,
it's almost a rent payment.
You're not Creedence Clearwater reimagined and brought back together, including people from the dead. You're one dude, and you're a beautiful, magical dude, but you're also at the UCF arena, so maybe. But that's okay. Oh, and I listen to Michael Bublé at Christmas, because everybody listens to Michael Bublé at Christmas. It's like Michael Bublé and Bing Crosby. You done.
And, is it Andrea Bocelli is also another one.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
It's good Christmas music.
Yeah.
You know what's cool is like we're talking about romance in our books this week, but a lot of what we've already, this was not intentional on my part, but a lot of what we've already talked about is very romantic.
Oops.
Oops. I was like, oh, it's a theme, and we didn't even mean to.
To be fair, I read a fuck ton of romance, so it's kind of my theme. Um, so yeah, what we're talking about tonight is romance in books, and not necessarily just romance books, but romance in books. Y'all know what that means. I'm not over explaining it.
Just like the shadow hunter thing that I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah. You like romance in your books, but you don't really read straight romance books. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. I don't know. Like, and part of that just might be exposure. I so I've read like maybe one or two straight romance books. I had so here's a story. I worked at a college. I taught for like 10 years, and there was the print shop person, and he was this very sweet, very hilarious old man. And we were talking about literature one day, and he's like, yeah, do you read romance? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, I have a book for you. And so I was like, okay. And so he brings me a straight romance book. And I got like 5-10 pages into it, and it just was very like, I mean, it was a straight romance book. And I don't know. Like, I don't, like, it was kind of weird. I couldn't read it. And I don't know if it was weird because he gave it to me and he was like, it just kind of changed my perception of who he was. So yeah, I don't know. I don't usually typically read straight romance, but I do like romantic underpinnings.
I think that's a good distinction. One of the things Jeffy Kennedy, who you are currently listening to or almost done with your first Jeffy Kennedy book, correct?
Yes, I finished the first one today, and then I actually started the second one in the same day.
One of the things, she introduces her podcast, and you would think I would know the answer to this by now, but I don't. And I know she's covered it, and I've just probably forgotten. She goes, author of fantasy romance and romantic fantasy, and those are different things. And I think there are definitely times where I want a straight romance. Like Ruby Dixon, there's other stuff happening in the background, absolutely. And I don't know that I could read it without that. But there are times when I just straight up want a romance book. But romantic fantasy, which is a fantasy book with a heavy romance element, which is what I think the series you're reading falls under. That's different. That's a whole thing. I would say that the last two, A Court of Rage and Ruin and A Court of the second Court of Thorn and Roses book, fall into that category. Even though she fell in love with the dude in the first one, I don't really count that because he was a plot device for her to fall in love with herself. I can't remember his name now. That's the green-eyed spring dude. Tamlin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tamlin, you were a beautiful plot device to help our girl get where she needed to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, the first A Court of Thorn and Rose book. A Court of Thorn and Roses. If we ever write a book, can the title be smaller than that? That'd be great. Like, it's a beautiful retelling of East of the Sun, West of the Moon. It is a romance book within its own right, but I think after that, once Farah's story really takes off, it's about so much more than just who she's in love with. And Jeffy Kennedy and Sarah J. Maas are similar in that as your reluctant heroine falls in love with the hero, it's about her discovering who she is and her character development that leads her to a point of accepting someone else's love, not so much about, oh, he's so handsome, what's his name? And so I think that has a lot to do with it. I have read Harlequin romances. I have read Bodice Rippers. I happily read the Bridgerton series. I've read like 1 out of 8. I need to get back on that. But my particular jam is a fantasy or sci-fi book that has a heavy romance element.
Yeah.
That is my vibe. Give me that shit.
I'm starting to appreciate it a lot more now, and I have you to thank for this, just because there's so many, I don't know, I feel like I tend to get stuck on authors, and when I'm done reading what they have available, I'm like, I don't know what to do next. And so doing the whole Paper and Vices thing has just been fucking fantastic for that reason, because it's just opened up my eyes to so many different authors. Granted, my TBR list is now through the fucking roof, but
One of us. Yeah, there's always, I mean, but I do like straight romance for the sake of romance. You've read A Gown of Spanish Lace, which at one point I would have said was one of my favorite books back when I was sheltered in Fundyland and wearing knee-length frumpy skirts from Walmart. But I've read so much Christian Amish romance and Christian clean romance. And, you know, now in my 30s, I'm like, if oral sex is in the Song of Solomon, maybe y'all could get up to a little something in the Christian bookstore. I'm just saying.
Only if they're married.
The couple in the Song of Solomon wasn't married.
I know, but I mean, talking about the
yeah, right. These are American Christian bookstores. They don't really want to know what the Bible says. My bad. I can hear them clacking the angry emails now. You offended God. Yeah, with far worse than that at some point. But I think romance, like anything else, it suffers the same pitfalls, but there's such a stigma and kind of a joke around it. And, you know, this is a rabbit hole you could fall down about women's sexuality and the sexual liberation movement and women owning their sexuality and women owning their stories, and just, you know, fall down that rabbit hole and fill in all the scholarly articles that have probably been written that I haven't read on the subject. But romance novels still suffer such a stigma. And so when they suffer from the exact same pitfalls that any other form of fiction or literature does, people are all like, it's a romance novel. It's like, okay, yeah, it's another big spaceship. It's another flying dragon. Like, come on. Come on.
I've heard a lot of people relate straight up romance to, like, it's the woman's form of porno. Like, guys like, you know, porno on the video, and women like read straight romance books. And I'm like,
no,
maybe, I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know.
First of all, there's probably arguments about this, but from what I remember, and I could be very wrong, and I'm half drunk, visual and written stimuli, different parts of the brain are lighting up.
Yeah.
Fantasy in general is important for healthy relationships, even if you don't place yourself in the place of that person.
Yeah.
And so to be like, reading stories about friendship, reading stories about siblings, reading stories about other people in other places and relationships is really important for us to learn and develop better empathy, but not people in sexual relationships, because that's the naughty juice. That's dumb as fuck. First of all. Secondly, I can read a romance novel and be like, hey, and not put my hand down my pants. Whereas if you're watching porn, the entire point is to put your hand down your pants, or you just start without pants on. Like, the point of a story, even if there's sex in it, because sex is a part of a story, a really fucking important part. Think about your story if you're the protagonist. Now, take out all the sex. You're missing a lot of context for a lot of things and a lot of personal growth points. Right? Yes?
Very true.
So, like, the point of a story is a story, and the point of pornography is an orgasm, and these are not the same things. And I am so sorry, Mr. Man, if you are so weak in your game that you cannot lay it down and you feel threatened by a piece of paper. But more than once, I have been reading a spicy scene, and I've gone to my husband smirking and pointed out a paragraph and been like, we did that last night, because that's what healthy couples do. Like, if you don't understand why Nesta gave her man a blowjob in the dining room, I'm sorry. That's not the fault of people who write about and subsequently have had good sex. Gonna probably drink more coffee than alcohol from here on out.
Keep going. This is hilarious. I
mean, like, and so being raised in the cult I was raised in, our friend Amanda and I were like cult friends. You're told that it's emotional pornography, which is basically
Yes.
a nice way of saying, bitch, lower your expectations. You're just a wormhole in a maid, because in the independent fundamental Baptist movement, that's what a woman is.
Yes.
It's not emotional porn. It's realistic, even expectations in a relationship. Like, if I am going to, and I don't, like, let's be real damn clear. If I'm going to have the house clean and the children presentable and my crinoline on and my hair freshly pressed and a roast in the oven every night when you get home, like, you better eat pussy like a starving man and bring me flowers every payday. This is not unrealistic. And so there is no good look to anyone anywhere for any reason that says, oh, it's emotional pornography. Fantasy is the same as watching watching RedTube for hours and hours. Bitch, no it isn't. Your game is weak and you're just letting us all know. I'm so sorry. And it really isn't the size of your dick. If you've got a micro penis, I am sorry, but there are handy dandy objects you can buy online that can fulfill that need. And you still have fingers and a mouth. There's no excuse, okay? Like, I don't, like, my husband wears kilts. I read romance novels about hot guys in kilts that don't talk a lot. My husband's a hot guy in a kilt that doesn't talk a lot. Like, if you're in a serious relationship, a long-term relationship, and you never see, personality-wise, anything relating to your significant other in the males that you enjoy reading about, that you possibly fantasize about, that is a deeper question for you and your therapist and like 6 bottles of wine to have.
That's very true.
And we've had the conversation before where people are like, some of these men in these romance novels are just such assholes. Well, okay, but like there's a formula. Assholes know how to put it down.
Yep.
Usually. Not always, but frequently. It's a thing. I mean, so maybe it's not that romance is emotional pornography or actual pornography. Maybe it's just that all these independent Baptist assholes I was raised with had no game in the bedroom or out of the bedroom, and they were just terrified that there were expectations of them greater than bringing home a paycheck in this life. Sorry, batch of patriarchy. Get over it.
Not that you have any opinions or thoughts on the matter.
I'm not even to the bottom of my 2 shots of rum yet. That's the sad thing. But no, it makes me really angry because, like, you know, my husband and I have gone through some really tough times. You know that during quarantine, there have been times where we've barely wanted to be in the same room. Mm-hmm. You and your husband also have times where you're just like, I love your face so much. Can it be like 6 miles away from me right now, though? And also your voice. Just go. That doesn't mean you have a bad relationship. That means you're a human being. But I was raised that, like, these Disney moments of, like, dancing in the kitchen and getting ready for holidays and all these, like, beautiful moments in books and movies never happened. They do. They don't happen as often as they do in books because books don't show you talking about the budget on Sunday night. Like, no one wants to read about that. Just like no one wants to read in detail, unless it's importantly related to the story, like a pregnancy test or something, about you going to the bathroom. Like, we know our characters pee. We don't need to have the phrase, she turned around and flushed the toilet and washed her hands before resuming the parts of the story we actually want to read.
Exactly.
But, like, if you're in a good relationship with someone who is one of, if not your very best friend, no, the sex isn't always going to be mind-blowing and perfect and magical. But you should once in a while come across a scene in a hot book and be like, yeah, I've done that. Mm-hmm. And you should have moments where you're just like super connected to this other person and you understand that they love you so much it's kind of overwhelming. Yeah. That is real life. It's just the ratios in fantasy and reality that are off. Yeah. And so one of the biggest things that is a pet peeve of mine about that whole phrase that it's emotional porn or it's just straight up pornography is that it's saying people can't be this good, and people that are this good and this loving and this romantic and this sexy and enjoy oral sex this much aren't real. And that's not true. Like, the characters are why we read books. Even if we love magic, even if we love fantasy. Sarah J. Maas, like Fae and the Fae courts and the Illyrians, these are not things she thought up on her own. What is amazing about Sarah J. Maas's writing is her characters.
Yeah.
And so if your life has a shitty cast of characters, I'm sorry.
Read more books. Find the characters that you do want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you make some really good points because it's just, and I don't know if that's possibly the reason that straight up romance books have just not been part of my repertoire. Oh my God. I should not use big words.
It's French.
Yeah.
Just go wah in the middle. It's fine.
Probably if I were more sober, I could say it, but not right now. So, yeah, no, it was just like a lot of it's taboo. So, I think that that's true, like you were saying, because there's just such this stereotype around it that it's just, even though people who are not, that were not raised in religious environments, I don't know, there's just kind of like this, ooh, it's dirty, but like, I don't know. I have to say, the authors that I'm starting to read now, there's more sex involved, and I appreciate it because I'm like, okay, this is real and this is relatable because it, like you're saying, sex is a big part of people's story, and it's an important part. So
it is, and I don't fault, like, I used to really get annoyed with authors that left it out. And I understand now why a lot of authors do, especially when it comes to like audience and parts of YA that are geared towards younger young adults and yada, yada, yada. But I feel like, so I can only come from my own background, but the background I come from, the people where like sex was taboo, my mother couldn't say the word boob or vagina or sex. Like they couldn't cross her lips. She had a case of the vapors. Like I didn't know the word vagina until I was like 14 or 15. I had already been bleeding. That's not good or healthy. That's really screwed up. So I come from a background that has some really screwed up ideas, not just about women, but about sexuality in general. And, you know, a woman's sexuality is in a way always owned by a different man, which is not huge timeout. But anyone that's been raised in almost any religion, not all of them, but almost any Abrahamic religion, can empathize with this. And so, like, I wasn't spared the funerals. I wasn't spared the fights, but I was spared the dancing and the kisses and the weddings. And so, like, that's kind of a weird, it's so hypocritical and maddening to me when you will not protect a child's innocence in other ways, and this is why they always claim they do it. I'm not saying that, like, my 6-year-old should be allowed to watch a sex scene. Obviously not. Obviously there are levels of appropriateness. But by the time she's 14, she needs to know where babies come from.
Yeah.
And she needs to know, like, what I want her to know about her creation is that she was wanted, and she was longed for, and she was hoped for, and she was made out of love by two people that love each other. And we loved each other so much, we wanted to make a new person to love. Like, that's the story of her creation. And I understand not every baby is that lucky. I'm not that lucky. I'm a broken condom baby. And I got blamed for my parents' shitty marriage for years because it was a shotgun wedding. But, like, when you let a kid see all that shitty part of life, and then you tell them the beautiful is bad, or even when it just comes to general romance and expecting flowers and date nights, that it's unrealistic and it's emotional porn, you're just a piece of shit. Like, seriously, there's not another way to put it. We can say it's not healthy and you need therapy. No, you're just a shitty human.
Pretty much.
Was it C.S. Lewis that said, I'm bastardizing this quote, children know there are villains. What we need to let them know is that there are heroes. Like kids are going to know there's bad shit in life. They're going to know that people die. They're going to know that people leave. They're going to know that hard moments happen. Making the good stuff taboo as well just makes you an awful person. Don't do that, because for me, it wasn't just as a kid. I was expected to grow up and be an adult. Like, people in leadership at my parents' church have bragged about how their daughters will go to their marriage bed not knowing what sex is. That's abusive as fuck.
Yeah, a little bit. Little bit.
And so, of course, they don't
Wow.
want them. They didn't want us. Aside from the sex, which in romance novels often focuses on a woman having an orgasm, sometimes more than one.
Yeah.
Like the blue dudes in Ruby Dixon novels, they figure out where the button is real quick. Like, real quick. They may never have mated with a female that has a button, but they find the human button because pleasing their human is important. And so, even aside from the sex, like the romance and the beautiful moments when you tell them that that is also a sort of forbidden fruit. And, a lot of this stemmed from outdated, ridiculous gender roles in the 60s. So, all of society suffers from it at that point. No, women should expect to be loved. And they should expect not every night, not even every week, but they should expect to have moments of dancing barefoot in the kitchen or just
Mm-hmm.
randomly being told they're beautiful and, being brought chocolate because it's a Tuesday. Like, these are things we should expect in our lives because we are worthy of them.
Yeah. Well, it's a matter of like respect too. It's respect for your personhood. It's a respect for the value that you bring to the world and to the relationship and to your circle, your community. Yeah, I don't know. It's and one thing I'm really enjoying with the Jeffy Kennedy books is there you see that respect with
Yeah.
the whole process of like when the characters first like have sex there's this level of like I don't know, waiting for permission and just like I don't know. And I feel like that's a big part of it. Whereas usually you think of porn and it's just like slapping bodies together. There's no like real
Right.
I don't know. There's the whole dynamic that's missing that you do get in romance books from what I'm finding.
You would also, I think, to that point, you would like Grace Draven, who's another one I really enjoy. I've talked about this before. Is it Radiance? Brishan and Adilko are a human and a magical non human race, and they're married for political reasons. And they both agree, out of mutual respect, because they can't have a kid anyway, to not consummate their marriage the night of. And there's a lot of political intrigue and a lot of other overarching stuff going on, just like in Jeffy Kennedy's books. But when they finally do decide to consummate their marriage, it is so beautiful because they're doing it because they love each other and they want each other and they've decided to become one, to become like a single functioning unit, to really be a couple, not just in paper, but in their hearts, and to be in love with each other. And it's very giving and it's wonderful. And, there's a lot of build up to it, and that story would just not be the same without that scene.
Yeah.
And then I think it's the Wraith King series. I can't remember if there's 2 or 3 books in the initial one. And then there's another one for a side character in the same universe that just came out, the Ippos King. But they're really good, and they're stories about, love and loss and longing and all that stuff. And yeah, like you said, porn is just smacking bodies together. And that is not this.
Yeah. What about I don't know. I recently read a book that had romance as an underlying theme, but it was poorly written.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, so I don't know. Like do you like what do you think about like can are there points or moments where romance could just like totally fuck up an otherwise perfectly good book?
Um, I think it can. I think if romance doesn't necessarily fit a part of the story and they try to shoehorn it in so they can say there's a romance and reach a certain audience, don't do that. Like, the main thing, and this is what Grace Draven and Sarah J. Maas and Jeffy Kennedy, and I could go on and on and on, these people do so well, and why Ruby Dixon's, even though her writing is somewhat formulaic and that it's very much classic romance with adventure, is that the character development is center, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you're just adding it on like a side dish, it doesn't really work very well. Even in the first Shadowhunters, Clary's character development was her finding out her history and all that stuff was front and center, even though her romance with Jace is very much a part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I read a series not long ago. I came in at the second book. It was a good series. I won't say who it is because I don't like want to badmouth the author because I would recommend it. But it was very jarring for me because the romance took up so much of book two. Like it was very much building in the first book. And then it was such a huge part, like the main plot of book two. And then in book three, it's sort of there. Sometimes the dude isn't even mentioned when you feel like he should be. Like it was definitely missing and a little bit bereft. And so it didn't, it has to be paced well and it has to be paced well throughout the series. Like if you're going to make romance, mating, whatever, such a part of a fantasy series, then it has to continue to effectively serve the hero or heroine throughout the series.
Yeah.
Like Sarah J. Maas does this. Reese and Feyre learn to work together as a team and they play off each other's strengths. In the Throne of Glass series, you know, having her mate adds to her and they work as a unit. And it's not all about the romance, but having the significant other is a big factor in their life. They don't just suddenly become another rank and file member of the friend group after we've had the romance story arc. That shit drives me nuts.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's kind of like, oh, here's your story. Here's the romance. Okay, back to your story.
Despite what I just said about that Grace Draven novel where the sex is the culmination of them solidifying their romance, it is not the culmination, like, it's not the end of their character development. It's not the end of their story. When the character development stops when you start fucking, that's not my jam. It's not my peanut butter. It's not my jelly. It's certainly not my bread. And you know, there are books like that, and there are people who just straight up want to read erotica, and that's fine. There is no shade on that. What I would say to those people is read good erotica, which is a whole different conversation. But romance and erotica, though there is often overlap, are not the same shit.
That is totally true and fair. Maybe that's what people think of. When they think of romance, they're thinking erotica, when it's really two very, very, very different things.
Yes. But I've even read BDSM novels that, yes, they have erotic elements because it's BDSM, but they are for sure romance novels. For sure. The one I'm thinking of is called Taking Flight, and I wish I could remember who wrote it. It may even just be a novella, not a full novel, but it's so good. And the BDSM is just another facet of their relationship and them both giving and receiving what they need intimately from another person is beautiful, which is how BDSM relationships should be. Safe, sane, consensual, kids. Don't sign a contract if you don't know what a butt plug is. And, you know, I think some people, when they hear romance, all they think is 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
And that's...
Totally. That's a different conversation.
It is.
I feel like we could go off on that.
Yeah. And not really to shame anyone for what they read, but I guess it just bothers me because safe, sane, consensual is not, like, that's the saying of the BDSM community. And it has given so many people the wrong ideas about how to safely go about any sort of bondage play that it's just like a little soapbox I will get on. And I think I've been on enough soapboxes tonight. Anyway. What are your romance pet peeves, since we've talked about all of mine?
No, I think the biggest one, you know, would have to be character development. Just, it's kind of like, I don't know, this book that I was saying that I read recently, it was kind of like they're in the middle of this, like, adventure, and then they had just basically met each other, and it was, oh, I love this person. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean you love this person? Like, you have there's been no development in the story of why you would fall in love with that person. And I mean, I know that there's the whole love at first sight thing, but that's not even there. It's just kind of like you're going about your adventure. Oh, I love you and want to fuck you. And yeah, and now back to the adventure. And I don't know. The romance can, like, if it's written as like a commercial in the middle
Oh
of a
no.
yeah, it's just,
You
and
know, in that
yeah,
situation, I would totally buy a the world is ending. This is a dystopian novel now. Let's fuck like rabbits. Like
yeah,
I would buy that. But the L word? Oh no.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh no.
Well, there was no fucking in this book. It might have been like a kiss, but like, why? The fuck is wrong with you? No, you don't love me. Back the fuck off. I'm sure I'll find more the more the more I read, but that's the one that
We've
comes to
had
mind right
these
now.
why me conversations about characters before. Like there needs to be if one character looked at the other and said, "Why me? Why do you love me?" Their love interest needs to be able to answer that. And if
Mm-hmm.
they can't, if you can't answer it for them by the time you're like a bit into the book, there may be a problem.
A little bit, yeah, fair to say. And I don't know, and I guess that's the thing with romance is that and this a large part of this conversation is just that there is a difference between romance and just like sheer lust and fucking. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Like if you're gonna have the lust and the fucking, have the lust and the fucking. But you could have like, I guess what's great about romance is that there's like a story behind it, and that story is really important. And if you don't have the story and like you were saying, like the why behind it, the why me, like it just falls apart.
Yeah. And I don't have a problem with erotica. I don't really read erotica because I want the story. I like sex, so I like sex in my stories. I find sex to be, in my life, a deeply personal and fulfilling thing. And so I find it to be really important in stories. It's
Mm-hmm.
a good way to measure, even if characters have sex on the first page. If it's a romance novel, it's a good way to measure like sex scene on the first page, sex scene in the middle, sex scene at the end, where their relationship has gone.
Yeah.
Just how they, even if they do it in the same position with the same ferocity, how they approach the subject with each other, how they approach each other for physical and emotional intimacy. And I like the story. And I think at the end, we're all stories. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
famous has said that at some point. And so what connects us to each other is our stories. And for those of us that are in romantic relationships that choose that as part of our life, romance and romantic relationships are going to bring us possibly the most joy and the most pain in our lives of anyone that we haven't birthed. Like, kids are a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But, of just some outside person that you didn't raise, that you've never been responsible for the life of, that you choose to give yourself to, like, those relationships are a huge part of your life. They're a huge part of shaping who you are as an individual. They're a huge part of how you choose to live your life, who you choose to have babies with. If you consciously make that choice, is a huge, huge decision. So, of course, these stories speak to so many of us. Of course they do. And
Yeah.
of course we call you out when you write bullshit. Of course we
'Cause we
do.
will. At least we're polite enough not to do it by name.
I mean, there have been some authors that I have said by name on this. I mean, I have blog posts on books I didn't finish, but a lot of times there will be books in general that I don't finish that, like, I recognize this person is a good writer. This story is not going to light up the synapses in my brain in a happy way, so I'm not going to read all of it. I have a whole list of DNF books that I've done blog posts on.
Yeah.
And that's, I think you have to get to the point where you're like, there's a difference between something that's bad and something that's dangerous and something that I don't like. There's a difference between something that I don't like and something that's bad.
Yes. No, that is
Which
very true.
which is a place that most Baptist baby boomers haven't gone. Sorry, Dad.
Oh no.
If he ever listens to this podcast, I have bigger problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between I don't like this and this is bad.
Yeah.
And I wish people that are so anti-romance could just learn there's a difference between something you don't like and something that is bad and should therefore lower your opinion of those who consume it. Romance books aren't heroin.
Well, and I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I mean, it's true. Like, and even amongst like romance scenes, like there's such a wide variety, and there's some romance scenes that you connect with, and some that you don't. I know we had this conversation when we were talking about the latest Sarah J. Maas book and just how those characters relate to each other. And I don't know. I'm learning a lot, and that's pretty cool.
It's funny, what I've learned from doing Paper and Vices together is where our tastes don't exactly match and mesh up. Because
Mm-hmm.
we've read, way before this, so many books together. So
Yeah.
many books together. Gone to movie premieres together for more than one series. And, I mean, we did Harry Potter, Vampire Academy, some of the Twilight, something else I'm not remembering. Like, you're my fandom buddy.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to find and learn about and celebrate where we have not just differences as in, oh, you haven't read this, but it's really good, or oh, I haven't read this, but it's really good, but just differences in, yeah, I don't like that. Like, I get it, but it didn't like speak to my inner person. And I'm just like, this thing was the best and it spoke to my inner person.
Yeah.
It's like getting to know you on a whole new level that I thought I already knew you on.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it thoroughly. Thank God you're not a shitty person.
Cheers. Cheers to that.
Cheers to the last drop of rum. Oh, it's in there. I'm gonna get it. All right. I think that about sums it up for the topic, yeah?
Yeah. Yep.
You can find us everywhere at Paper and Vices, except for TikTok. We're too old for that shit. We're pretty active on Instagram mostly, but if you leave us a message or a comment anywhere, we'll see it. You can email us at lee@paperandvices.com or victoria@paperandvices.com. We do have a Patreon if you would like to support us, because rum and edibles aren't cheap. I guess microphones and shit cost money too. And we have sparkly pins, which are great.
Yes.
And yeah, on Patreon, we're also Paper and Vices.
Surprise. In the meantime, don't be an asshole, smoke a joint, and take care of yourself.
This has been a production of Paper and Vices, copyright 2021. This episode is presented for entertainment purposes only, and any vice should be pursued only within the legal boundaries, common sense, and personal responsibility of each person. Please check your local laws. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and guests only, and do not in any way represent the views of Paper and Vices LLC or any named persons, nor should they be considered personal, medical, or legal advice. Previous episodes and other commentary can be found at paperandvices.com.